I remember the exact moment I walked out of that house and realized no one would notice. It was just after dawn, the horizon still soft with the pale pinks of an uncommitted sunrise, and not a single light in the house flickered on behind me. For the first time in my life, I slipped out of a front door without worrying who needed breakfast, who needed their uniform ironed, who needed me to exist so their world wouldn't fall apart. I hesitated at the gate, waiting, hoping for a sound, a voice, a footstep, anything. But there was nothing, and that silence told me everything I didn't want to know. You may think a mother would feel triumph in that moment, finally breaking free from decades of unacknowledged servitude, but I felt something far heavier. I felt the weight of a truth I had avoided for years. My absence meant less to them than a missing sock. But that was only the beginning. As I wheeled my small suitcase down the sidewalk, its plastic wheels chirping against the uneven pavement, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace. Not yet. It was the numb quiet that comes right after you've cried more tears than your heart thought it could hold. I felt older and younger all at once, like I was finally meeting myself at the age of 68 for the first time. Still, the silence behind me hurt like a bruise pressed too long. I turned the corner before I allowed myself a final glance back at the home I had poured my entire adult life into. Yellow curtains, a sagging roof tile, the faint memory of a wind chime Andrew once bought for me, a porch light no one bothered to replace after it burned out, a home that looked like love from the outside but felt like erasure from the inside. And that erasure, it hadn't begun that morning. It had been years in the making. If only I had paid attention to the small ways they stopped seeing me. I suppose this is where I must take you back. Back to the long nights and early mornings, to the quiet humiliations that never made a sound, to the slow suffocation of realizing you are needed but never cherished. Because I can't tell you about the day I left without telling you about the years that pushed me toward that decision. Have you ever loved people who didn't even notice your exhaustion? Comment below and take a moment to subscribe to the channel. My story didn't begin with abandonment. It began with devotion. After Alfred and I divorced, I thought raising 3 children alone would bring us closer, tighten our bond like family threads pulled together by shared survival. Andrew was only 16 then, tall, brilliant, already taking charge of things he didn't understand. Melina was 7, always twirling around the living room with ribbons in her hair. And little Carl was just a toddler who clung to my leg with fierce, sticky-fingered affection. I believed love would grow stronger in hardship, but hardship has a cruel way of reshaping people. The first cracks appeared quietly. Andrew stopped joining us for dinner, always buried in homework, though I later learned he was simply hiding in his room, avoiding the chaos he assumed I could handle alone. Melina grew self-absorbed as soon as she discovered makeup tutorials and friend groups that made her feel adored in ways I apparently did not. Carl grew into a teenager who treated the house like a landing pad for snacks and sleep, never acknowledging the unseen hands that prepared both. At first, I let it go. Mothers do that. We forgive too easily. But then the cracks widened. I remember one night clearly, long before the morning I left. A storm had rolled through Phoenix, the kind with thunder that rattles the window screens and rain that falls like handfuls of gravel thrown from the sky. I had cooked a full dinner, rosemary chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh rolls, hoping the warmth would bring them to the table. I even lit candles, the small kind I saved for special occasions. I called out to them. "Dinner's ready." My voice echoed down the hallway. No answer. I assumed they hadn't heard me, so I tried again, louder. "Dinner, come eat before it gets cold." Still nothing. The storm outside grew louder, but the silence inside the house swallowed me whole. I walked down the hallway and peeked into their rooms. Andrew had headphones on, his face lit by the flash of computer screens. Melina was filming herself in the mirror, smoothing lotion across her cheeks with a concentration she never once gave me. Carl sat on the floor with his gaming headset, eyes glued to his screen, fingers flying across the controller. None of them looked up. Not one. I stood there, holding the edge of the doorway, feeling my heart fold in on itself. It was such a small moment. A ridiculous one, maybe. But the truth hit me like the crack of thunder overhead. I had become background noise in my own home. the infrastructure that kept their lives moving but did not warrant acknowledgement, let alone appreciation. The food cooled, the candles burned low, and the storm outside became kinder than the quiet inside. But even that wasn't the night that broke me. That night came later, and it came quietly. 1 month before I left, I woke before dawn, as I always did, arthritis stiff in my hands, the ache in my hips pulsing like a tired heartbeat. I shuffled into the kitchen and found a mountain of dirty dishes overflowing from the sink, plates with dried cheese, cups with sticky rings of soda, a pan that looked like it had been used and abandoned by someone who never considered who might clean it. The trash can was overflowing. A bag of groceries I'd bought the night before sat unopened on the counter. And the dishwasher door, the one I had asked them to fix for 6 months, hung limply open, off its hinge, as if mocking me. I stared at it all, and something inside me hollowed out. I wasn't living with family anymore. I was maintaining them. The revelation struck so deeply I had to brace my hand against the wall to steady myself. My breath tightened. The room tilted. My chest felt heavy, as if every unspoken disappointment had settled there overnight. I closed my eyes, listening to the house breathe. Except it wasn't breathing. It was consuming. Every ounce of energy I had left. I washed the dishes. I took out the trash. I wiped the counters. And with every motion, I felt something draining from me. Something essential. Something I had never allowed myself to name. Dignity. But that was only the beginning. Because when they finally woke, their first words weren't good morning or thank you. They were complaints. Why is there no orange juice? Mom, you shrank my sweater. Did you ever fix the Wi-Fi? One of them, I can't even remember which, stepped over the mop I was using and asked if I had time to iron something for them before work. I stood there staring at the tile floor I was cleaning, and I felt a small, painful click inside my mind. Not anger, not resentment, awakening. The slow, dawning understanding that I had spent decades giving everything and receiving nothing but expectation in return. This wasn't motherhood anymore. This was servitude. Something changed in me after that day. I began watching them, really watching them, the way you might observe strangers in a waiting room. I noticed how they passed me like I was air, how they called out Mom, not as a greeting, but as an alarm bell for tasks they didn't want to do, how they never once asked how I slept, how I felt, how my doctor appointment went, whether the ache in my hands had worsened. It had. But they didn't notice. And then came the final night. The night before I left. The night that burned into me like a scar. I had cooked beef stew, the kind Andrew used to love when he was young. I carried the heavy pot to the table, wincing as my wrist trembled. My joints felt like rusted hinges, but I forced myself through it the way I always did. Dinner, I called out. Only Carl answered, shouting from his room, "Just leave it, I'll eat later." He never did. Melina breezed past the table without stopping, grabbing her purse and saying, "I'm going out. Don't wait up." She didn't look at me, not even once. And Andrew came home long after midnight, stepping over the cold pot on the stove as though it were a piece of forgotten trash, not a meal prepared by hands that shook from fatigue. That night, I went to my room, my small, cluttered sanctuary where none of them ever knocked, and sat on the edge of my bed. I looked at my hands, the ones that had cooked, cleaned, carried, held, healed. Hands no one touched anymore. I felt something tighten in my throat. Not a sob. No, I was past crying by then. It was clarity. I looked around my room and realized it was the only space in that house that reflected me at all, and even then, not enough to feel like home. The house wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs, and they didn't need me. They needed what I provided. The difference mattered more than they ever knew. So before dawn, I packed a suitcase, just one. Clothes, medications, important documents, a few photos, and cash I had saved secretly over the years, the only thing I had ever kept for myself. I stepped quietly through the hallway, listening one last time to the rhythm of a home that had never held space for me. I paused at each bedroom door. No goodbyes, just memories. Some sweet, many painful, most forgotten by the people who lived them with me. Then I opened the front door and stepped out. And for the first time in my life, the world didn't collapse when I chose myself. But I had no idea what they would do when they finally realized what my leaving meant. Not just for them, but for me. And trust me, they would not handle it well. I did not go very far that first day. People imagine escape as a long road trip, a train cutting across states, a plane ticket to somewhere with new weather and new scenery. My escape was a 40-minute bus ride to a neighboring town where the houses were smaller, the streets quieter, and no one knew my name. I sat near the back with my suitcase pressed against my knees, fingers clutching the metal bar as if the bus might suddenly reverse and drag me back to the life I had just left. But the bus only moved forward, and so for the first time in decades, so did I. The sun was already sharp by the time we rolled into the town that would become my refuge. Rows of modest one-story homes, a corner store, a small line of businesses, and then the site that anchored my decision. A brick building with wide windows and a faded sign that said simply, Community Library. I do not know why that building called to me. Maybe because I had always loved books and never had time to read them. Maybe because inside a library, people whisper out of respect. I had not felt respected in a very long time. I stepped off the bus with stiff knees and a thudding heart, my suitcase rattling behind me on the cracked sidewalk. I did not have a grand plan. I had a little money, a list of cheap rooms I had written down from community postings, and the stubborn hope that there had to be more to life than washing plates for people who barely looked at me. Hope is a fragile thing at my age, but once it wakes up, it can be relentless. Still, I had no idea how hard the first nights would be. I found the rented room through a flyer at a convenience store. A handwritten sign said, "Room available, quiet house, mature tenant preferred." Something in those last 3 words made me smile. I was certainly mature. I just hoped I was also still alive. The house belonged to a woman named Gloria, a widow in her 70s with a sharp tongue and kind eyes. She opened the door halfway, peered at me over her glasses, and said, "You must be Teresa." "You called about the room." Her voice was brisk but not unkind. "Yes," I said, adjusting my grip on the handle of my suitcase. "If it's still available." She looked me up and down, not in judgment but in assessment, the way a woman who has lived through enough nonsense learns to evaluate people quickly. Then she opened the door wider. "Come in then," she said. "Let's see if we can stand each other." There was something almost funny in her honesty, and it loosened something in my chest. But that was only the beginning. Her house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something baking, banana bread, I would later learn. Sunlight filtered through lace curtains, casting soft patterns over the furniture. It did not look expensive. It looked lived in. There were framed photos on the shelves that actually had dust on them, like they had been sitting there a long time. My children never let dust sit, because I was always wiping it away. Gloria showed me the room. It was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a single window that looked out over a scraggly orange tree in the backyard. A thin rug lay across the wooden floor. The walls were bare, ready for someone else's story. "I don't allow smoking, drugs, or uninvited overnight visitors," she said, folding her arms. "Kitchen is shared. Bathroom is shared. We each wipe down the counters when we're done. Rent is paid on time, and we respect each other's quiet." Her rules sounded like music to me. "I can do that," I said. "I like quiet." Her gaze softened just slightly. "Good, then we might get along." She named the price. My stomach clenched at the number. It would eat a careful portion of my savings each month, but it was fair. It was the price of freedom. "I'll take it," I said. Gloria nodded, then surprised me by reaching out to touch my arm. "You look tired," she said. "Not the kind that sleep fixes, the other kind." "You running from something?" Her question made my throat tighten. I could have lied, said no, said I was just trying something new, like people do in glossy magazine stories. But I had run out of energy for pretending. "I'm running from being invisible," I answered. She held my gaze for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe, or memory. "Well," she said at last, "you're not invisible here. You're a tenant. And if you stay long enough, maybe you're a friend. Now put your bag down. You look like your bones are tired." I laughed softly, unexpectedly. The sound felt unfamiliar in my mouth. But even as I settled into that little room, even as I placed my few folded clothes into the dresser and set my single-framed family picture on the nightstand, the ghost of my old house clung to me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the sink full of dishes, the flicker of screens on my children's faces, the untouched pot of stew. I wondered if they were awake yet, if anyone had opened my bedroom door and noticed the closet half empty, the dresser drawers missing their contents, the absence of my worn slippers by the side of the bed. I doubted it, and I was right. While I was learning the shape of my new room, the old house was still sleeping through my absence. But that was only the beginning. The first week was the hardest. I woke instinctively at 5 in the morning, expecting the demands of breakfast and laundry to pull me into motion. Instead, I found myself sitting upright in an unfamiliar bed, the silence pressing against my ears. No one called my name. No one needed me to find misplaced keys or sign forgotten papers, and that silence felt dangerous. Do you know how disorienting it is to realize your entire sense of worth has been tied to being needed? I did not know what to do with myself, so I did something small. I made coffee. Not a full pot, not 4 mugs worth like I used to for the kids and myself. Just 1 cup. I sat at the tiny desk by the window, hands wrapped around the warm ceramic, watching the light move slowly across the backyard. The orange tree looked half dead, but a few stubborn fruits clung to its branches. I envied them a little. After the second morning of restless confusion, I wandered into the town. The streets were quiet, lined with small shops that looked like they had been owned by the same people for years. No one rushed. No one slammed doors. I found myself standing outside the community library again. "Come in or you'll just bake out there," a voice called from the doorway. I startled and looked up. A woman in her 50s with short gray-streaked hair and bright, alert eyes was holding the door open for me. She wore a name tag that said Lena. "I was just looking," I said. "Then look at the books from inside," she replied with a half smile. "We keep the air much better in there." Something about her straightforward kindness made me step forward. The cool rush of air-conditioned comfort brushed my face as I entered the building. The smell hit me immediately. Paper, dust, and something like hope. Libraries smell like possibility, you know. Lena closed the door behind me. "First time here?" she asked. "Yes," I admitted. "I just moved to town." She studied me with the practiced eye of someone who had seen many wandering souls pass through those doors. "Welcome. I'm Lena. I run this place along with a few volunteers. If you need anything, ask. We're small, but we're mighty." Her phrase made me smile. "I'm Teresa," I said. "Nice to meet you, Teresa," she replied. If you're relating to this kind of escape story, by the way, you're not the first. People come in here when they're starting something new, or when they're recovering from something old. She winked. "Books are cheaper than therapy." Her attempt at humor worked more than she knew. But there was something else happening in that moment. Something I did not recognize until much later. Someone was seeing me. Not as mom, not as a servant, not as a background figure, as Teresa. "This is a beautiful library," I said, taking in the tall shelves, the reading tables, the small children's corner with faded rugs and bins of toys. "It's fragile," she said. "The city keeps threatening to cut funding. We scrape by with donations and volunteers." "Do you need help?" I asked before I even knew I would say it. Her face brightened. "Always. We could use someone to shelve, help visitors, tidy up, keep track of returns. It's not glamorous, but it matters." Glamorous. The word felt foreign to my ears. I had never needed glamour. I had only ever wanted respect. "I can help," I said. "I don't have a job yet. I have time." She nodded slowly, as if weighing something privately. "We do pay a modest stipend for regular help. It's not much, but it's something. If you're willing to commit to certain days, we can work something out with the city payroll. They make it complicated, of course, paperwork and all that." I felt a flicker of excitement, small but bright. "I'm willing," I said. "Very willing." I did not realize then how important that job would become, not just for my wallet, but for my soul. Because shelving books and greeting strangers would slowly rebuild what life in that house had dismantled. My sense of worth. But that came later. For now, I walked home from the library with a small stack of novels in my arms and the first hint of purpose in my chest. Meanwhile, back in Phoenix, the dishes were beginning to pile up. I did not know that yet. I did not see the way Andrew stepped over the clutter on the kitchen floor, assuming someone else would handle it the way I always did. I did not see Melina opening the refrigerator to find it nearly empty and complaining to the others instead of going to the store. I did not see Carl tossing his laundry into a corner because the hamper was full of clothes no one had washed. I did not see any of it. But the house that had devoured my energy was slowly choking on its own neglect, and that irony still makes me smile in a dark, quiet way. Days passed. I settled into a rhythm, morning coffee, walking to the library, learning the systems, returning to my small room and sharing occasional meals with Gloria, who, unlike my own children, actually asked how my day was. "What made you smile today?" she would ask, not "what did you get done?" The question stunned me every time. One evening, about 2 weeks after I moved in, I sat at the kitchen table with her while we ate her banana bread and drank tea. The television murmured softly in the living room, but neither of us was really watching. "You seem lighter," she observed, squinting at me over her mug. "Do I?" I asked, surprised. "You were carrying something heavy when you came here," she said. "Still are, but now it looks like you put one bag down. Not all of them, but one." Her words struck me as oddly precise. "You're very perceptive," I said. "Old," she replied dryly. "Old people have seen things. You learn to recognize familiar shadows on someone else's face." She paused. "Have you heard from your family?" The question punched the air out of my lungs for a second. I shook my head. "No," I said, "not yet." She watched me carefully. "Do they know where you are?" "No," I admitted. "I left without telling them." Her eyebrows rose, but she did not scold me like a child. "That must have scared you," she said. "Doing something for yourself. Finally." "It did," I said. "It does." "Good," she answered. "Fear means you're leaving the cage. Comfort is what kept you in it." Her words stayed with me long after I went to bed. But there was another kind of fear brewing, one I had not yet felt, but would soon. The fear of being found. It was around the 3rd week when the first call came. I was in the library, standing on a small step stool, shelving returned books in the fiction section. The air was cool and quiet, punctuated only by the soft beep of the checkout scanner and the murmur of voices from the front desk. My cell phone vibrated in my pocket. I almost ignored it. Only 2 people had my new number, the woman at the city office who handled the library payroll and Gloria. Neither of them usually called during the day. I climbed down and checked. Unknown number. A familiar area code. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the screen as it buzzed in my hand, the noise suddenly sounding too loud in the hush of the library. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text appeared. "Mom, where are you? Andrew." My hands went cold. This was the moment I had known would come, the moment I had both dreaded and braced for. I felt my breath shorten, my fingers trembling around the phone. Part of me wanted to call immediately, to reassure, to comfort, to fall back into the old pattern of soothing everyone but myself. Another part of me stood very still. Lena's voice jolted me from behind. "You okay, Teresa?" I turned to see her near the end of the aisle, a concerned crease between her brows. "You look like you just saw a ghost," she said. "In some ways, I had. I'm fine," I lied. "Just a message from family." Her expression shifted in subtle understanding. "Ah," she said. "Family, the original drama theater." I managed a shaky laugh. "Take a moment," she added gently. "We can manage the shelves without you for 5 minutes." I nodded and walked into the small staff room at the back, shutting the door behind me. I leaned against it, clutching the phone, reading the message again and again. "Mom, where are you?" 4 words that sounded so simple, but I knew what sat underneath them. Not, "How are you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We miss you." Where? Because they needed me back where they felt I belonged. Another message came before I could gather my thoughts. "Mom, this is serious. None of us has seen you for a while. Call me." The irritation slipped through even in text. I sank into the chair in the corner and closed my eyes. This was the first test of the new life I was trying to build. Would I run back at the first sign of their discomfort? Or would I stay seated in this new chapter and answer from a different place? I did not answer. Not yet. Instead, I wrote back one short line that burned my fingers as I typed it. "I'm safe. I need space. I will talk when I'm ready." My thumb hovered over the send button for a full 10 seconds that felt like an hour. Then I pressed it. My heart thundered. If you've ever set a boundary with someone who never thought you would, you know that feeling, that wild mix of terror and relief. It is like jumping off a cliff and hoping you grow wings before you hit the ground. But I had no idea how they would respond. And the messages that followed over the next days, especially when they saw the state of the house and finally realized what my absence really meant, would show me exactly who my children had become. And trust me, what they wrote next changed everything. The messages didn't stop after the first one. If anything, my calm reply, "I'm safe. I need space," seemed to ignite a kind of panic I had never seen in my children before. Maybe because for the first time in their lives, my absence was not temporary. It was a choice. It was intentional. And they could not control it. The next morning, as I walked to the library with the sun already warming the pavement, my phone buzzed again. I tried to ignore it. I tried to focus on the birds hopping along the sidewalk, the distant hum of cars, the faint scent of dew warming on stone. But the vibration persisted, 3, 4, 5 times. Finally, I stopped beneath the shade of a mesquite tree and looked. "Andrew, Mom, it's been weeks. Why are you doing this? We're worried." "This is cruel, Mom. If something was wrong, you could have told us." "Please answer. The house is a mess. We don't know what to do." That last line. I stared at it until the words blurred. The house is a mess. We don't know what to do. Their worry, their hurt, their confusion, none of it centered on me. Not my health, not my exhaustion, not my well-being. Their panic was rooted in chores undone, groceries unbought, bills ignored. It was strange how liberating and heartbreaking that realization felt at the same time. But that was only the beginning. At the library, I tried to occupy my mind with routine. I liked the way books made sense. Spines aligned, categories labeled, stories beginning and ending where they were supposed to. People came in looking for answers or escape, and the books welcomed them without judgment. If only family worked that way. Lena noticed my distraction before I even shelved the first cart. She walked over, arms crossed, tapping her pen against her chin. "You've got that bad news text message look again," she said. "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head automatically, but she raised an eyebrow, the kind that says, "I'm here. But I won't force you." The kindness nearly broke me. I swallowed hard. "My children," I murmured. "They're upset." "Upset because they miss you," she said. I hesitated. "Upset because they miss what I did for them." Lena's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly, almost painfully. "That's a special kind of heartbreak, Teresa." I felt a sting behind my eyes. "I don't want to go back," I whispered. "But I don't know how to keep this new life from collapsing if they decide to pull me back." She touched my shoulder gently. "That's the trick, isn't it? Figuring out what you owe them and what you owe yourself." Her words stayed with me long after she walked away. But the day did not stay quiet. Around noon, I was helping a teenager find a biography for a school project when my phone buzzed again. I ignored it until I reached the staff room during my break. As I poured hot water into a mug, the phone vibrated for the 7th time that day. "Andrew? Mom? Rent is due. Your name is on the account. What are we supposed to do?" My heart tightened. Rent. My name. Still tied to a house I no longer lived in. Of course, they never thought to ask me to remove it. Of course, they assumed I would always be the safety net. And then another message. "You didn't even leave us any instructions. You can't just disappear." Disappear. That word again. Not, "You left." You disappeared. As though I had vanished irresponsibly, like someone who forgot to refill the milk. I set my phone down and wrapped both hands around the mug to steady them. The staff room clock ticked softly, a small, reassuring rhythm. I breathed with it until my heart slowed, but the quiet didn't last long. This moment would soon detonate everything. That evening, Gloria was waiting for me at the kitchen table when I arrived home. A newspaper was folded beside her teacup. She looked up with a seriousness she usually reserved for weather warnings or news about distant cousins. "You've been pacing differently," she said without preamble. "More weight on your left hip. That means stress." I sighed and sat opposite her, placing my phone between us. "They won't stop messaging," I admitted. "They're starting to panic." "Good," she said, sipping her tea. I blinked. "Good? If they're panicking, it means they're finally realizing how much they relied on you and how little they appreciated it." I traced the rim of my mug, but they sound angry. "People often confuse panic with anger," she replied, "especially when they're losing control." I looked at her, startled. "Losing control?" She nodded, leaning closer. "Teresa, you were their entire infrastructure. The roof, the engine, the wheels, the fuel. When you stepped away, the machine collapsed, and instead of fixing it, They're trying to haul you back to keep it running." Her words rang through the room like a bell. It was the truth I had felt but had not yet dared to articulate. "You're not wrong," I whispered. "You've given your whole life," she said softly. "Now take a little of it back." I wanted to. Oh, how I wanted to. But the guilt crept in like a soft shadow, whispering that a mother should not abandon her children, no matter their age. Then I remembered the sink full of dishes, the stew untouched, the clothes piled high, the silence that swallowed me whole, and the guilt loosened its grip. But that night brought something new, something unexpected. A voicemail from Melina. Her voice, usually so composed, so performative, was cracking. "Mom, please, we're fighting. The house is disgusting. I don't know how you did everything. I'm so tired. Please come home, just for a day. Just help us get it together. Then you can go back to wherever you are." Wherever you are. I felt a tremor through my chest. There was no love in her plea. Only need. Only desperation. But desperation can be a dangerous thing, because it grows teeth. I went to bed that night with her voice echoing in my mind. I stared at the ceiling, the faint shadows from the streetlight shifting across the plaster. For the first time since leaving, an old instinct tugged at me. The instinct to return when called, to save them from themselves, to patch the holes and carry the weight. But I had to remind myself of something important. I had left for a reason. I whispered it aloud, letting the darkness hold it with me. I left for a reason. Still, sleep would not come. Not because I doubted my decision, but because I sensed something looming. A shift, a turn, a pressure building. And I was right. Because the next morning, I woke to 27 missed calls. 27. My breath stuttered. My phone buzzed again before I could even process the number. "Mom, we messed up. The water got shut off." I covered my mouth. Another message came immediately after. "Carl, and the electric bill. We thought someone else would handle it. We didn't know it was so much. We don't know how to fix it." My eyes closed slowly, not from weariness, but from a bittersweet surge of recognition. They were drowning in responsibilities I had carried alone for decades. Responsibilities they had assumed must be easy, because I never let them see me struggle. Then came another message, this one from Andrew, and it made my stomach drop. "Mom, the landlord came by. He said if you don't contact him soon, he'll take action. This is serious." You, everything reverted to me. Even now, especially now, their first thought was to push the burden back onto my shoulders. I felt something hot rise in my chest. Not anger, something cleaner, sharper, boundaries. But that was only the beginning. The real twist came that afternoon. I was shelving a stack of travel books when Lena hurried toward me, holding a cordless phone in her hand. Her face was pale, her expression knotted with concern. "Teresa," she said, voice low, "you have a call," at the front desk. My heart plummeted. Only 2 people knew where I worked, Gloria and the city payroll office. My children did not. Not unless... I walked toward the phone slowly, dread thickening in my limbs. A woman at a reading table watched me with curiosity as I passed. The library's cool air suddenly felt too cold, too thin. Lena held out the phone. "Do you want me to stay?" I shook my head. I lifted the receiver to my ear. "Hello?" A breath crackled on the line. Then, "Mom?" It was Andrew. My hand tightened around the receiver. My pulse hammered against my ribs. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "You didn't answer your cell," he said. "We had to figure out where you were. We called everywhere. We looked you up online. We searched public records. We found your payroll filing." My chest went still. They had tracked me. "You can't just disappear," he said again, voice taut with frustration. "We're your family." Something cold and old in me finally broke. "No," I said softly. "I was your servant, and I quit." Silence. And then, "Mom, we're coming to get you." My breath caught. You may not believe what I felt in that moment. It wasn't fear, it was fury. But that fury had nowhere to go yet. Not until they arrived. Not until I faced them again on my terms. Not as the woman who held their world together, but as the woman who walked away from it. I hung up the phone before he finished speaking. Lena stared at me, her eyes wide. "Teresa, what's happening?" My voice trembled with fire. "They're coming here." "Here," she whispered. "Yes," I said, to drag me back. I stepped away from the desk, forcing myself to breathe, grounding myself in the familiar scent of books and dust and old paper. Because I knew something with unsettling clarity, this confrontation would not be like the cafe. This time they were desperate. This time they were afraid. This time they would not take no so easily. And deep down, beneath all the fear and all the strength, I sensed something else rising inside me. Resolve, because they were coming. And I was not the same woman they had left behind. But what happened when they arrived? That would change everything. And trust me, I had no idea just how far they were willing to go. They arrived faster than I expected. I should have known they would. Panic makes people move quickly, and entitlement moves them even faster. Still, nothing prepared me for the sight of all three of my adult children standing outside the community library like they were staging an intervention for a woman they hadn't bothered to see for years. I first spotted them through the tall windows near the reading tables. Andrew pacing with his hands shoved into his pockets, jaw tight. Melina adjusting her hair over and over with trembling fingers. Carl shifting from foot to foot, shoulders hunched, eyes darting nervously like a boy being dragged to the principal's office. They looked out of place in the quiet of that little town, loud in their urgency, bright in their agitation, heavy with expectation. And in that moment, I felt something extraordinary. I did not feel fear. I felt distance. The kind of distance that allows you to see the truth clearly for the first time. But that clarity was only the beginning. The library door swung open as Lena approached me from behind. "They're here, aren't they?" she whispered. I nodded, my breath shallow but steady. "Yes." She stepped beside me, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. "You don't have to go out there if you're not ready." Her kindness nearly undid me. For a moment, I imagined hiding in the back room, letting them stand there confused, maybe even embarrassed, forced to confront a silence they had never respected. But running was a younger woman's instinct. At 68, I was tired of shrinking. "I need to face them," I said quietly, "but on my terms." Lena gave my arm a gentle squeeze. "Then I'll be right here, behind the desk. If they try anything, I'll get the director, or the police. You hear me?" Her support steadied something deep inside me. I walked toward the front doors, each step firm, my palms damp but my spine straight. The glass doors reflected my face back at me, older, lined, weathered, but calm in a way I had not seen in years. A woman finally choosing her own life. I pushed open the door, and the heat of the afternoon rushed over me. All three of them turned instantly. "Mom." Andrew stepped forward, his voice cracking with a mixture of relief and frustration. "Finally." The way he said finally stung more than he realized, as if I owed them my time, as if I owed them my presence. "Why didn't you answer our calls?" Melina demanded, her voice thick, eyes wide. She looked like she had cried, but for whom, I could not say. Carl stayed a few steps back, his mouth tight, worry etched into the soft angles of his face. "We didn't know if you were hurt," he said. "We didn't know anything." Their concern might have sounded genuine to an outsider, but I knew better. Concern born in convenience is not love. Still, seeing all three of them standing together, worried for the first time in years, made my heart ache in the way only a mother's heart can ache. But that ache did not erase the truth. I crossed my arms gently, grounding myself. "Why are you here?" I asked. Andrew's eyes widened. "What do you mean? Why are we here?" "Because you disappeared." The word hit me like a slap. Disappeared. I took a slow breath. "I didn't disappear. I left." "Without telling us?" he snapped. I lifted my chin. "You didn't notice I was gone for 30 days. 1 month, and now you demand explanations." The silence that fell between us was sharp, but that was only the beginning. Melina stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Mom, we were worried. The house is falling apart. We can't figure out anything. The bills are confusing, and the landlord won't stop calling. The kitchen is, well, never mind. The point is, we need you." Need. Not love. Not miss. Need. The distinction trembled through my chest like a soft earthquake. "You need me to run the house," I said. "Not because you care about me." Carl shook his head quickly. "No, Mom, I mean, yes, we care. But it's more than that. We're lost without you." Lost. The irony almost made me laugh. Because I had been lost for years, wandering through their needs like a maze with no exit, and none of them ever noticed. I looked at each of them slowly, letting the silence deepen until the heat of the day pressed against our skin like a reminder of how long we had let things go unspoken. "Tell me something," I said softly. "Why did it take the collapse of the house for you to realize I wasn't there?" Their faces shifted, not with understanding, but with discomfort. "Mom," Andrew said finally, "we thought you were mad at us. We thought you were taking some space. We didn't expect you to vanish." There it was again, that word. As if I had performed some dramatic stunt rather than quietly slipping away from a life that had suffocated me for years. "I didn't vanish," I said. "You never looked." Lena watched through the window, her face unreadable, but I could feel her strength behind me like a shadow offering shelter. Andrew ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "Mom, the landlord said rent is late. He threatened legal action if he doesn't hear from you. Your name is on the lease." "I know," I said, "and that will be resolved, but that doesn't mean I'm coming back." His head snapped up. "You're being ridiculous." The old Teresa, the one they all leaned on, would have flinched, maybe apologized, maybe softened the blow, but I was not that woman anymore. "I am being clear," I said, and that clarity shook all three of them. But the real twist was still coming. As Andrew tried to gather himself, Malina suddenly stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Mom, people are starting to ask questions." I frowned. "What people?" "Our neighbors, Aunt Rachel, even some of Andrew's coworkers. They thought something happened to you. They thought maybe you were..." She hesitated. "They thought maybe something awful occurred." My breath caught. "So now you come looking?" I whispered. The shame that flickered across their faces was brief but real. And yet shame alone does not change people. It only scares them temporarily. Before any of them could respond, Carl suddenly blurted out, "Mom, the house is unlivable. It smells. The trash is..." He winced. "It's bad." "There are bugs," Melina added quickly, as if confessing a crime, "and mold in the bathroom," and Andrew almost started a grease fire trying to cook. The image should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange dark irony settle inside me. They were finally being swallowed by the responsibilities I had carried effortlessly, or rather, silently, for years. "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said gently, "but you'll figure it out." Melina shook her head, stunned. "No, Mom, you don't understand. We can't figure it out." For a brief moment, the child in her resurfaced, the little girl who once cried because a ribbon got tangled in her hair. But that little girl was grown now, and I was done raising adults. But that was only the beginning. Andrew stepped closer, lowering his voice in a tone that sounded rehearsed. "Mom, we're not asking. We're telling you. You can't stay here." A cold rush swept through my spine. "You can't stay here." He said it like he had authority over my life, like my freedom was negotiable, like my presence belonged to them. "I can," I said quietly, "and I will." His jaw clenched. "Mo?" "No," I interrupted. "You don't get to command me." He took a breath, struggling to contain frustration. "We're not trying to command you. We're trying to take care of you." They hadn't taken care of me in years. "By dragging me back into a life that crushed me?" I asked. "No, that's not care." Carl's voice cracked. "We messed everything up, Mom. We need help." The sincerity in his voice twisted something in me. The youngest always had the easiest path to my heart. But even that wasn't enough to undo the truth. "You're adults," I said. "You will learn what adulthood feels like, even when it's uncomfortable." Their faces stiffened at my firmness, but none of them were prepared for what came next. A car pulled up to the curb, a dusty sedan with a cracked windshield. The driver stepped out. My old neighbor, Mrs. Whitaker. Her expression was troubled, frantic even. And when her eyes landed on me, relief washed over her face like rain on dry earth. "Teresa," she cried. "Thank heavens. I've been trying to reach you for days." My stomach dropped. Why would she be trying to reach me? She hurried closer, ignoring my children completely. "I didn't know if I'd find you. I asked Gloria when she was gardening this morning, and she said you might be here." I glanced toward Gloria's house in the distance, a flicker of surprise tightening my chest. "What's wrong?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "It's the house." My heart thudded once. "What about it?" She hesitated, then spoke carefully, her eyes shining with worry. "There was an inspection notice posted on the door. Someone reported unsafe conditions. They're threatening fines, maybe even condemnation if things aren't fixed." Condemnation. The word struck all three of my children like a blow. Andrew paled. That can't be right." Mrs. Whitaker shook her head. "It's very right. I've seen inside. They let it go, Teresa. They let it all go." I turned slowly toward my children. Back in Phoenix, The house I had built, the house I had kept alive, had been rotting behind my absence, and that rot was now public, humiliating, consequential. The weight of it shifted everything, but that wasn't the real twist. Not yet. Mrs. Whitaker lowered her voice to a whisper meant only for me. And Teresa, they found something else in your room. My breath froze. Something you will want to see. My children stiffened, fear slicing across their faces. What are you talking about? Andrew demanded. Mrs. Whitaker glanced at him with an expression only a woman who has raised her own children could manage. Firm, disappointed, unimpressed. It's not for you, she said coldly. It's for your mother. My heart hammered. Something in my old room, something left behind, something important enough to cross towns for. What did they find? I whispered. But she didn't answer. She simply said, you should come see it. I felt all three of my children watching me, tense, uncertain, afraid, not of losing me, but of what might be discovered. For the first time in decades, the power tilted toward me. But the decision was mine, to go or not go, to face the ruins of the life I left, or let them drown in the consequences of their own neglect. I inhaled deeply, feeling my ribs expand like a door opening. And I realized something with absolute certainty. Whatever was waiting for me in that house, it would change everything. And trust me, I had no idea what I would find behind that front door. I hadn't seen the old house in more than a month. Yet as Mrs. Whitaker drove me and my children back toward Phoenix, the familiar roads felt like they were made of salt, every turn stinging old wounds I had tried so hard to let heal. I sat in the front seat of her sedan, hands folded tightly in my lap. Behind us, my three children sat in tense silence, each of them trapped in private calculations. Fear, guilt, strategy, denial. I could feel their eyes on the back of my head, but none of them dared speak. Not after Mrs. Whitaker said those words. They found something in your room. My room. The one space in that entire house that had ever belonged to me. The only corner where I was not reduced to service. I didn't know what waited there. But I did know this. Whatever it was, it wouldn't hurt half as much as the years that led me to leave. The air inside the car grew heavier the closer we got. The desert sun glared off the windshield, and in that brightness, the house appeared in the distance like a ghost, familiar, but already belonging to a life that was no longer mine. When we finally pulled up to the curb, my breath caught. The porch was cluttered with bags of trash. The yard was patchy and overgrown. The windows were smudged with fingerprints and dust, and the front door, my old front door, had a bright orange notice taped to it. Unsafe conditions, inspection required, resolution deadline approaching. Andrew went pale. Melina clapped a hand over her mouth. Carl let out a shaky breath. This was no longer a home. It was a reflection, a mirror of everything I held together alone. But that was only the beginning. Mrs. Whitaker walked ahead of us, fanning herself with a folded envelope. Come on, she said gently. Let's get this over with. As we approached the porch, the smell hit me first, a sour mix of old food, mildew, and stale air that made my stomach tighten. I stepped inside slowly, each foot landing on a mess that hadn't existed when I lived there. The sink was overflowing with dishes. The counters were sticky with spills long dried. Takeout containers were piled on the coffee table. Clothes, clean, dirty, forgotten, covered the living room floor. It felt like walking into the aftermath of a neglectful storm. My children watched me carefully, waiting for me to do what I had always done: clean, restore, rescue. I didn't move. Mom, please don't be mad, Carl whispered. We tried. It just got out of control. Melina's eyes shimmered with shame. I didn't know mold could grow that fast. Andrew hovered near the hallway, rubbing the back of his neck. Let's just find whatever Mrs. Whitaker was talking about. Then we can figure everything out. Everything out. Meaning, how to make me stay. How to make me fix what they let fall apart. How to return the life they were desperate to cling to. But I was done restoring things that weren't mine anymore. Mrs. Whitaker led us down the hallway. It's in your room, she said. My steps grew heavier, not from fear, from memory. The door creaked open, revealing the small space I once retreated to when the weight of the household felt too heavy to lift. It looked stripped, bare mattress, empty shelves, drawers pulled open as if someone had searched through them in a hurry. But the air was wrong. It didn't smell like neglect. It smelled chemical, sharp, bitter, wrong. What happened? I asked softly. Mrs. Whitaker pointed to the corner near the closet. The inspector found it when they came to post the notice. I followed her gesture and felt my breath leave me entirely. The wall was blackened, charred from what had clearly been a fire. A fire. A fire in my room. A fire that no one told me about. A fire that could have killed me if I had still been living here. Andrew swallowed hard. We were going to tell you once we figured out how to explain it. Melina stepped forward quickly. It was just a little accident. A candle. Or maybe a short circuit. Carl's voice cracked. It was me. Everything froze. I left a space heater plugged in, he whispered. Next to a pile of clothes. I forgot it was on. The fire started during the night. My knees went weak. During the night I left, if I had still been asleep in that room, if I had not walked out at dawn, if my life had been one day different, the fire would have reached me. That realization struck me in the heart like a falling brick. But that was only the beginning. Mrs. Whitaker continued. Thankfully, the fire smoldered out on its own. Not much oxygen in those tightly packed rooms. But there was smoke damage, and the inspector said the wiring in this house is old. Dangerously old. Old wiring. The kind that sparks. The kind I had begged them to fix years ago. Andrew avoided my gaze. We didn't want to stress me, as though they ever considered my stress. My hands trembled. Not with fear, but with the sudden, overwhelming knowledge that my leaving had not just saved my sanity. It may have saved my life. I sat on the edge of the bed frame, feeling the weight of everything I had endured and everything I had narrowly escaped. The burnt wall stared back at me like a dark truth finally revealed. Carl spoke again, tears flooding his eyes. Mom, if you were here, I would have killed you. Silence swallowed the room. He didn't mean it cruelly. He meant it literally. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't check. I never think. You always did everything. I'm so sorry. His grief was raw, real, painful, but even that couldn't erase the truth. I stood up slowly. All of you listened to me. They looked at me like children again, lost, frightened, aching, but I was not the woman they once depended on. I had become someone else, someone who understood the price of her own silence. This house almost killed me, I said. And none of you even noticed until weeks later. Do you understand what that means? Their faces crumpled. It means, I continued, that I loved you so much I erased myself, and in return, you learned to live without seeing me at all. Andrew's voice cracked. Mom, please, we'll do better. We'll fix everything. No, I said gently, you will fix everything, but I won't be part of it. Their reactions were visible shock, like each of them had secretly believed that, despite everything, I would eventually come home. And that was the final truth they needed to face. This house is your responsibility now, I said. Not mine. But we need you, Melina whispered, voice trembling. No, I said. You need to grow up. The sentence shook all of us, but it was the truth that had been waiting years to be spoken. I walked toward the doorway, brushing my fingers along the charred wall one last time. The ashes crumbled lightly beneath my touch, staining my skin with a reminder I would never forget. I stepped into the hallway, then turned back to them. I forgive you, I said quietly, but forgiveness isn't the same as returning. Their tears came then, 3 adults crying not for their mother's suffering, but for the loss of the version of me that made their lives comfortable. I'm choosing myself, I continued, for the first time. And then something inside me, a boundary, a final thread, snapped free. I walked out of the house, not rushed, not broken, not afraid, a slow, steady walk of a woman reclaiming her life. The sun hit my face as I stepped onto the porch. It felt different this time. Not harsh, not blinding, but warm in a way I hadn't felt in decades. Freedom has a temperature, and it felt like sunlight. Mrs. Whitaker placed a hand on my shoulder. You're stronger than you know, she said. I'm becoming her, I whispered. Then I turned to my children, who had followed me to the doorway, their faces wet and stricken. Mom, please, Andrew whispered. Don't leave us like this. I held his gaze, and for the first time in his life, he saw a woman, not a servant. I'm not leaving you, I said. I already left, and now I'm living. Their expressions fractured, hurt, realization, and a dawning understanding that they could no longer reach for me like a tool on a shelf. I walked down the front steps, one slow step at a time. At the bottom, I paused only once. The wind lifted the edge of the inspection notice, making it flap like a warning flag. Then I turned away. I did not collapse. I did not shake. I did not question myself. I simply walked toward my new life, and they did not follow. Because they knew, this time they had lost me for real. Not out of anger, not out of rebellion, but out of self-respect. And the truth was simple. I was finally free. Back in my new town that evening, Gloria greeted me at the door. She took one look at my face and nodded with gentle understanding. "You told them," she said. "Yes," I whispered. "I told them." "And did it hurt?" "Yes." "And did it heal?" I closed my eyes. "Yes." She handed me a warm cup of tea, her eyes soft. "Welcome home, Teresa." Home. A word that finally meant something again. I sat in the kitchen, letting the steam from the cup rise into the quiet evening. The scent of banana bread drifted through the air. A cat meowed somewhere outside. The world felt small, but in the right way, like a place where my heart could fit without shrinking. Later that night, as I lay in my bed, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not the fragile kind that breaks when someone slams a door. The real kind. The earned kind. The kind that grows when you finally choose yourself after a lifetime of choosing everyone else. And as sleep tugged gently at my eyelids, I whispered into the darkness, "This is my life now, mine." What would you have done in my place? Tell me where you're listening from. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you wish to support more stories like this, consider using the super thanks. With heartfelt greetings, until next time.